I need a cool intro. Nobody watched my videos because I don't have a cool intro. Today is June 27th, 2025, which marks 4 months since I've personally owned the Canon C400. And overall impressions is that it's great. And what we're going to talk about are the things that I like, which are just the selling points and why you would probably be looking at this camera. And then just a couple things that annoy me about it, but are not deal breakers by any means. This camera's great. And if you have it, you're not going to be unhappy. I can tell you that. The number one selling point of this camera is probably the triple base ISO. Duh. In C-Log 2, you're going to get 3 ISOs that clean up very nicely. So you're going to get 800, 3200, and 12,800 when you are in C-Log or if you are in RAW. If you switch over to Rec 709, which we do shoot quite a bit of stuff in Rec 709, it's going to be 400, 1600, and 6400. I will tell you, the first time we took this camera out, we used that feature. And so I think it is a big selling feature. It is a big selling feature if you are run and gun stuff and you can't control the lighting conditions. The next feature is that it has a 6K sensor and it's full frame. Full frame is probably the bigger selling point than the 6K part of it, because you can only get the full 6K frame if you're shooting in RAW, which, believe it or not, I don't shoot in RAW all that frequently. Maybe on a test here or there. For my clientele and who I work with, nobody's asking for RAW footage, and it's massive RAW footage. The next one is buttons. There are so many buttons on this thing that you should be able to customize it out however you want. You can press buttons all day. All day. The next selling factor outside of is the form factor. The form factor of this camera was important to me because I do a lot of handheld shooting. And the C70 is not the most comfortable camera to hold. It is like a DSLR or a mirrorless camera just on steroids. And the problem with that is that it takes so much of your freaking hand to hold this goddamn. And then if you put a cage on it, it just becomes a problem. The C400 is very comfortable to handhold. I previously owned a C200, which I really like shooting with, but there were some other drawbacks with that camera. And one of those drawbacks was how long it took to put together. C400, you don't really have that. Putting the top handle on, what they did with the top handle and how it goes on is so much more convenient than the C200 ever was. And then I think the next selling point for a lot of people is going to be the enormous amount of recording types that you get in this camera, more than you want to go over. But you're going to get RAW, you're going to get XFAVC, and you're going to get XFAVCS, which is just a smaller, compact form of XFAVC. Now let's get into the things that slightly annoy me about it, but are not deal breakers. And some of these things, most of these things, have resolutions that you can get around if you want to spend some money, or maybe if you just want to dig in the very complex file settings that it has. The first is the autofocus switch. On the C70, I have it set up where there is a button that I press when I'm in autofocus that will switch between all frame autofocus, which basically means whatever's in the center of the frame is going to be in focus, and then face autofocus. On the C400, I have only been able to I can get that button to work, or that feature, or that whatever setting to work, but because the C400 comes with autofocus that is human face, pet face, or animal face, and then all frame, you have to click between person to animal to all frame. And I've dug through the settings. I've tried what I believe is all the settings, and I cannot figure out how to disable it where it will just go from face eye autofocus to all frame autofocus. And while it hasn't hindered anything, in fact, usually when you go from face to animal, it just stays on the face that you're on. And then it'll go to, then you can click over to all frame. Again, not a deal breaker, just a slight annoyance for me. I looked, when I was trying to set it up, I looked at the exact settings that I had in the C70s, and you just can't replicate it in the C400 from what I can see. The next one is the screen that comes on the C400 is, in my opinion, not as good as the one that comes on the C70. It is good. It's better than the C200. So if you want to baseline, the C200 was the most god-awful screen that Canon has ever put on a camera. And I could be totally wrong about that, but from the cameras that I've experienced, the C200 was by far the worst screen that's ever been on one of the cameras that I've used from them. C400 is probably like 90% of the way there against the C70. I just think the C70 gives you a truer image of what you're shooting when it hits your computer than what the C400 does. The last annoying thing is the microphone mount when you want to have a monitor on your camera. Now, your top handle has 3 places to mount stuff, and you can get around this all with a cage. If you buy a cage, you're going to get around all this. But in its from the factory state, if you try to put a monitor where the hot shoe mount exists and have the mic holder on, you will need something to extend the holder up to clear the mic holder, and that is annoying. What I have found to do is to connect a small rig monitor mount to the second hole, and is adjustable, and you still have the issue of possibly hitting the back of the microphone, but you can push it out far enough that it's not an issue. Again, not a make or break deal, just an annoyance. The Canon C400 is currently on B&H for $8,500. So who is this camera for? Let's get something out of the way. You have to know what your budget is, and any camera you buy in this day and age is going to be a good camera in a controlled setting. I'm shooting this whole video on not the whole video probably, I'll probably add some B-roll and that's not this camera, but I have a Canon EOS R shooting this, and I'm in a controlled lighting situation. We have this light, we have that light, and we have a backlight that's on that's just a practical light. If you are looking for this, if you're looking at this camera and you have the cash on hand to buy it, you will not be unhappy with your purchase. I don't think you will be. I don't really see how you could be. If you're trying to match other Canon cinema cameras, this is going to match. It matches the C70 very, very well, or maybe the C70 matches it very well. I don't have to do much tweaking, if any, to the image to get it to look good. If you are considering buying this camera and you do not have the cash on hand to purchase the camera, and you are going to finance the camera some way, whether it's via a credit card or a personal loan or a business line of credit or whatever you're going to do to get the camera, I would say don't buy this camera. That is my advice. I think you can save yourself a bunch of money buying the C80 or the C70, because I think you're getting about 98% of the features from the C400 and either one of those cameras, maybe a little less on the C70. You might be getting 90% of the features of that camera. Are you fucking kidding me? Now, if you decide to buy the camera, whether you're buying it with cash or if you are financing it, you need to charge for the camera when you use the camera. Now, for me personally, I charge $200 per shoot for this camera, which when you do the math, it comes out to about 40 shoots will pay the camera off. I've done about 20 shoots since I've purchased the camera, and I will have done more than 40 by the end of the year, which means this camera was purchased in February and will have paid for itself before the end of the year. Now, I'm not saying that you need to do it in a year, but I think if you're extending out somewhere of like 5 years worth of work before the camera pays for itself, then you might really want to start considering whether or not this is the right purchase for you. Because again, every camera is going to do good in a controlled setting, and most cameras will do just fine, at least most modern cameras will do just fine. In an uncontrolled setting, you may get some noise here or there, but I don't think it's anything that's going to be like, oh my god, we just absolutely cannot use this shot. The other thing is that this camera is not going to find you more work. At least I don't think it's going to find you more work. People who are hiring you are not talking to you and you're saying, I have a Canon C400. And then they immediately just, oh, gee, Willikers, man, you got a C400? Oh. This camera's not doing that. I don't even think Aris do that. And if you have an Ari, you're not doing the same kind of work that I'm doing. Yeah, so those are my thoughts on this camera. Thanks for watching. Okay, bye.